Let me find my class lectures. Okay, we continue with our Nectar devotion study. Warm welcome to everyone. It's nice to be in your association. I'm not sure if you listened to Sutapa Prabhu's class this week, where he spoke about rasa and the contribution of Srila Rupa Goswami. How many of you heard that class?
Yes, Prabhuji, on Tuesday morning I heard it. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a fantastic class, and what really came out there when you're speaking about Rupa Goswami, he being the Rasa Acharya, how he so beautifully explained what is rasa in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rasa means transcendental mellow, Amrita means nectar, and Sindhu ocean. So we're very fortunate to be studying this book because we are getting access into the highest type of taste. So very important book to discuss and to understand. So we'll start off by saying the invocation. Nana Shastra Vichairane Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamita Karino Tribhuvane Manya Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padara Vindabhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujago Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Sri Sat Goswami Astaka, Srinivasacharya, verse number 2. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vastacha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we continue with our study of Nectar of Devotion, and we arrived at chapter number 1. Who can remember what is the title of chapter number 1?
Characteristics of pure devotional service.
Characteristics of pure devotional service. And how many characteristics are there of pure devotional service?
6.
6. Wonderful. And who can remember the first 2?
Kleshagni and Subhada.
Kleshagni and Subhada. Well done, Divya Gaurangi Mataji. Really been reading. And what does Kleshagni mean?
I will let others answer.
Well, I've got the information in front of me, so I'd be a bit cheating, I'm afraid.
Okay, we welcome you to cheat then.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says Kleshagni's pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress.
Wonderful. And Shubhada.
Pure
Shubhada.
devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness.
Wonderful. So these are the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. And we discuss the first 2 come at which stage?
Sadhana Bhakti.
Sadhana Bhakti. The next 2 come at which stage?
Bhava Bhakti.
Wonderful. And the next 2 come at the stage of?
Prema.
Prema Bhakti.
Prema Bhakti, yes.
Yeah, I think we should allow others to give them a couple of seconds to see if they want to answer as well.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sure, Mataji.
So we shall discuss. So last week we started Kleshagni. The pure devotional service immediately brings immediate relief from all kinds of distress. So we said there are 3 causes for distress, material distress. What are the 3 causes for material distress? This one, we all have personal, practical, daily experience of. What are the 3 causes of material distress?
The bhautik, and is that all?
In one sense, yes. There's material distress caused by the body and mind, material distress caused by the other living entities, and material distress caused by natural elements. These are agents. These are agents. These are agents for material distress. But they
Hare
are,
Krishna, is it because of our results of our sinful activities?
that's one of it. We suffer because of our sinful activities, isn't it? We are sitting, going about in our life in a very nice way, and suddenly, slap! We get completely knocked off course. And what is that cause of that?
Avidya, ignorance.
That's another one, but one is the cause of our sinful activities. Yes, you've given the second one. Someone said avidya, which is ignorance, and last one you said desire. So can someone tell me how avidya, ignorance, causes distress?
Because when ignorant of our true position as the true self, as the soul, we identify with the body.
Yes, that's true. Because we think we are this body, anything that happens to this body, we suffer. But if we were completely aloof from the body, we would be aloof from that suffering. And the last one someone mentioned was desire. Material desires, it's always troubling us. We have a desire, intention to want to serve Krishna. We have all intentions to want to be good devotees. But somehow or the other, these aspirations evade us. And one of the main reasons material desires. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he goes into great lengths to try to explain how pure devotional service destroys all three. He also says that the root cause is ignorance. It's from avidya, ignorance, everything results. So Srila Rupa Goswami will now start to cite evidence that why devotional service is the best means of obtaining relief from distress. And why is that? Because it's the only process. It's the only process that can counteract all three causes. And Srila Rupa Goswami, in a very brilliant way, goes on to explain how this takes place. So he starts off with sinful reactions, papam. And he says there are 4 stages of our sinful reactions. Like, for example, we are living. So the first stage is unmanifest. So there is a reaction that's going to come to us. And at the moment, there's no perceptible effect of that reaction. It's just like, say I was going to get some skin disease. Right now, that reaction, it's there. It's going to happen. It's going to happen and it's there. But I have no perception of when and how it's going to happen. Some people, they go and see astrologers and the astrologer will say, when you are 55, you are going to get some severe disease. There may be some ability, but generally, astrologers are not so good. They can predict everything in your life. It's imperceptible. And it's going to come to us. So the next one is kutam, is sinful proclivity. So in this stage, the reaction shows some stage of manifesting. Some hint of symptoms of the sickness. It's like sometimes to cause a sickness, you may have to eat something or drink something. And although we know that it's not good for us, we may do it. And that's called kutam. Next is bijam. In this stage, the sinful reaction manifests more. And the symptoms of sickness are starting to show themselves. And then the last stage is prarabdha. The sinful reaction is fully manifest. Now I got all my sinful disease. I'm itching, suffering. That's fully manifest. So there are 4 stages of sinful reaction. So you'll see in your Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada, he quotes the different verses from Nectar of Devotion. This one, he says, my dear Uddhava, devotional service in relationship with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activities supplied to it. And Srila Rupa Goswami says, just like a blazing fire used for cooking and other purposes turns wood sticks to ashes, so bhakti directed to me in the form of action such as hearing about me, somehow there burns. So everything starts where? At the unmanifested stage. If you can completely address it at this stage, the next 3 stages won't So the first thing Srila Rupa Goswami does, quoting the 11th canto, 14th chapter, text number 19, as evidence, he says that this pure devotional service is so powerful, it can burn. It can burn everything like this. Like the common example we give is seeds. Take, for example, maybe some jeera seed or some mustard seed. You take that seed and unintentionally, maybe you may drop it on the ground. And if some conditions are all right, it will fructify. But if you take the same seeds and you fry it on the pan, you fry it and you fry it and you fry it, then you throw it in the ground, you put the most fertile conditions, it will never grow. So this is a very appropriate analogy. This pure devotional service is so powerful that it can burn the seed or even the unmanifest reaction. So none of the other reactions would take place. And Srila Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami gives one example, hearing. Simply by hearing about Krishna, which is one of the 9 processes of pure devotional service, this can happen. And there is another quotation from the 3rd canto, and this is destroying prarabdha reactions. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face, even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Srila Rupa Goswami gives Ramana. You will notice if you read this chapter number 2, there are many quotations from various shastras when these different characteristics are being discussed. So Srila Rupa Goswami again, he always cites evidence. So here is one diagram which explains. So we have the sinful reaction, it's called papam. Then it is unmanifested. Then it can manifest and it can bear fruits, or it can have seeds or stalks or the disposition, proclivity, and then that will manifest into desire, and then one performs a sinful reaction. And then from that sinful reaction, there has to be another, because the proclivity remains. And in this way, it continues and continues and continues. So this is the special situation with pure devotional service. And in the Bhagavad Gita, this is the other mechanism that's discussed of how this takes place by pure devotional service. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if one abandons all dharmas and surrenders unto him, the Lord says, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. And Srila Prabhupada, when commenting on this verse, he also extends the same principle to the spiritual master. If we surrender to the spiritual master at the time of initiation, you become free from all sinful reactions. Prabhupada said that. We become free from all sinful reactions. And then Prabhupada has also explained that when a devotee surrenders to Krishna, just simply by the process of surrendering to Krishna, Krishna takes charge of all the devotees' sinful reactions. And Prabhupada said, and uses the devotee's sinful reaction for the best benefit of the devotee. So someone may say, oh, what's going on here? In one, you're saying that devotional service destroys all sinful reactions. And then it is said that sinful reactions, Krishna uses for the best benefit of the devotee. So in one sense, Prabhupada explains this point. He says, Krishna, he takes a personal interest in the life of a devotee. And a devotee may not sometimes be free of sinful desires. So Krishna, wanting the devotee to become free from all sinful desires, he will use some of the reactions to put the devotee into difficulty. So that the devotee becomes more and more serious about surrendering to Krishna. So we cannot say that exactly that this is karma, because karma is an automatic reaction that one gets because of one's sin. But in this case, this is Krishna's mercy. This is not an automatic reaction. This is Krishna's mercy in how he is administering it to us for the sole purpose of our purification. And this is a famous verse from it's from the 10th canto actually, spoken by Lord Brahma. That tatte nukampam susamikshamana bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ritvag vapurbi vidhatan namaste jiveta yo mukti pada sadaya bhak. Most of you would have heard this very famous verse. My dear Lord, one who constantly waits for your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So if we go through life knowing or thinking that our suffering is simply due to our sinful reactions, tolerating it, then this kingdom of the Lord becomes our rightful inheritance. So another Acharya, Srila Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur, has also given some explanation about how devotional service removes reactions. So he's explained it in the context of anarthas. What is the meaning of anartha? Mayank Prabhu, do you know what's the meaning of anartha?
If something is not, is not right, if you know that you're doing something wrong, anartha you're doing. Like you're doing good deeds and wrong deeds, so anartha is kind of wrong deeds.
Yes. Srila Prabhupada gave a very simple definition of anartha. He says there are unwanted things in the heart. Very simple definition. So we all have unwanted things in our hearts. And actually, if we didn't have these unwanted things in our heart, our execution of devotional service would be just complete transcendental bliss. And we would be steady. So he explains that there are 4 types of unwanted things in the heart. That which is arising from previous sin, which takes this form of attraction to sinful activity. Second thing is, which is interesting, which is the opposite. It's that's arising from previous piety. attraction to sattvic sense gratification. Like sometimes people are very much in a mode of goodness, that even if we expose them to Krishna consciousness, they don't take, because they are so comfortable in the so-called mode of goodness. The third type of anartha is arising from mistakes in devotional service. Sometimes it's called seva aparats. When we do seva, they may be different offenses we commit. And that creates an anartha in our heart. And lastly is the anarthas that arise from offenses, like offenses to the holy name, offenses to the Dham, offenses to Vaishnavas, and so on. So Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti explains that there are 5 grades of eradication. These anarthas, there are 5 grades of eradication. Eradication means how they come up. The first one is limited. The second one is pervasive. The third one is general. The fourth one is complete. And the fifth one is absolute. Absolute means completely gone. So he says, in the case of nam aparad, offenses to the holy name, this is one type of aparad. So he says, at the stage of bhajana kriya, the eradication is limited. What is the stage of bhajana kriya? Emma Mataji, you can tell us what is bhajana kriya stage?
I don't know, Prabhuji. Sorry.
Okay. It's all right. Chandrika Mataji, you know what is?
Is it chanting the holy name and devotional song, bhajan?
Partly. So what is the first stage? On the stage, 9 stages. First stage is?
Shravana Kirtanam.
No. First stage, what does devotional service start off with? What's the very first stage of devotional service?
Chanting.
No. Shraddha, faith.
Oh, faith, yes.
Yeah.
After faith comes what?
Worship.
Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha.
Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, which means after I have a little faith, I think, let me associate with devotees. And after associating with devotees,
It's Bhajana Kriya.
Bhajana.
Bhajana Kriya.
Let me say, let me take it a little more seriously. Let me take initiation. Let me practice this process. Bhajana Kriya. So at the level of Bhajana Kriya, Srila Vikrama Chakravarti Thakur says that these anarthas, there's limited eradication. On the stage of Nishta, so after Bhajana Kriya comes what?
Anartha.
Anartha Nivriti, removal of all the unwanted things in the heart. And after Anartha Nivriti comes what?
You just said Nishtha, isn't it?
Nishta, yes, Nishta. So we become fixed. So at the stage of Nishta, it becomes pervasive. All of the anarthas start to become effective. On the stage of Bhava Bhakti, the stage is general eradication. At Prema, it is complete. And with the attainment of the Lord's lotus feet, the eradication is complete. Absolute, sorry, absolute. So there is there's different grades. So we can see that even in the beginning stage, there is eradication.
So Prabhuji, Brajana Kriya is initiation stage, right? We're just doing the 4 regulatives, doing the sadhana practice,
Yes.
but we haven't quite got rid of our natas. We're still plodding along.
Yes, yes. So it's starting to happen. It's all starting to happen then.
Okay. We're not there.
But it's not pervasive, neither is it complete, or neither is it absolute. So in the Nectar of Devotion, we will be reading, those who have read the chapter, we see that Prabhupada explains that there are other ways of becoming free from reaction. Who can think of some other ways of becoming free from reaction, sinful reaction, reactions? What is the famous example that's discussed in the 6th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam? After Maharaj Parikshit heard in the end of the 5th canto, where Shukadev Goswami explains all the sufferings that take place in the hellish planets. Maharaj Parikshit asks Shukadev Goswami an interesting question. He says, being a devotee, he says, it's so unfortunate how the suffering you explain in the hellish planets. Tell me how they can become free from this suffering. What's the first answer that Shukadev Goswami replied to Maharaj Parikshit?
Is the taste or attachment is like sadhana bhakti, Prabhuji?
No, that was not.
Chanting
Chanting.
the holy name.
No, Shukadev Goswami first he said atonement, prayaschitta. And then what was Maharaj Parikshit's response to that? Did he accept it?
No, he didn't, did he?
He didn't. Why didn't he accept it?
Because he was thinking of the elephant bath.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
He gave the example of the elephant. The elephant goes, it takes a bath, and then he goes back in the mud. Prabhupada used to say, every morning, 10,000 prostitutes go take bath in the Ganges. Every morning in Calcutta. But then in the evening, they go and do the same thing again. So Maharaj Parikshit, he rejected this process of atonement. Then there's other processes like austerity, giving in charity. All of these processes, they offer some relief, but it's not permanent. It's not permanent. So in this way, in this chapter, Srila Rupa Goswami, he talks about how it is only pure devotional service can completely free us from all of these three. Avidya, he also talks about avidya, ignorance. And he quotes this verse from the 4th canto, 22nd chapter, 39. He says, the devotees, by actions of service to the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, can very easily overcome the knot of ignorance, carrying unlimited impressions of karma, tied tightly by action. Because this is very difficult, the empty-minded non-devotees, the jnanis, and the yogis, although trying to stop the flow of sensitive activities, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Vasudeva, the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So in this way, Srila Rupa Goswami gives very, very nice evidence that how pure devotional service brings immediate relief from material distress. And I think all of us have experience of this. Just think about our lives before we took the devotional service. I mean, some of us on this call may have been devotees from birth, so maybe you can't think about it. Just think about life before you took the devotional service, and think of the trajectory you would have been on now. Always trying to enjoy. Always trying to enjoy, hankering, as Prabhupada says, these mountains we carry on our head, hankering for that which we do not have, and lamenting for that which we had and we lost. And the moment we take to pure devotional service by the process of hearing and chanting, immediately we feel relief from that distress. Even if we do not know it by practical realization, we all know we are not this body. And sometimes, we may go through some difficulty, physically or mentally or whatever it is. At least we have this bit of knowledge that we're not this body. We know we are in a sort of a dream. And every dream comes to an end. No one has any hang-ups about the dreams. So the devotee, by knowledge, we know, and this knowledge comes by the grace of Guru and Krishna. This ignorance, it's destroyed. And the reactions are also destroyed. Our reactions could become very bad. We know the famous story of the king, Birbal and Akbar. Anyone knows that story about how the king got cut? What happened? Anyone know? Can tell the story? So once there was this king, and his minister, Akbar and Birbal, I think it was Akbar and Birbal. So one day, the king was doing something, and then he got cut. And the minister was a devotee. And he told the king, that's Krishna's mercy on you. Krishna's given you token reaction. And when the king heard this, he couldn't take it. He said, you rascal, I just got cut. And you are saying that this is Krishna's mercy upon me? He said, just take this nonsense away and put him in jail. So the next day, the king was out in his kingdom, hunting. He was in the forest. They got captured by some worshippers of Durga Devi. And they captured the king and his entourage, and they were going to put them on the sacrificial altar and offer them all, chop their heads off and offer them to Durga Devi. And they were looking at each of them, and when they came to the king, they saw him, he had the cut. And they said, we can't offer Durga Devi anybody who's tainted, so set him free. And in this way, the king was rescued. And the moment he went back to the kingdom, he immediately went and he said, release the minister. And he said, I'm so sorry. You told me it's Krishna's mercy, but I couldn't fathom it. But now I can see. And I'm so sorry I put you in jail. And the minister said, no, it's also Krishna's mercy you put me in jail. Because normally I am always with you. And if you didn't put me in jail, I would have been there and sacrificed. So in this way, he was seeing everything as token reaction. So with knowledge, we can feel the burden of material distress relieved. So before I go on to the next characteristic, which is Shubhada, all auspicious, are there any questions, comments, reflections, clarifications, corrections anyone has on this particular characteristic?
Hare Krishna, I just got a quick clarification to make. You explained about the jeera seeds which will fructify on fertile ground. From my understanding, you mean to say that if we can do devotional service, it will burn our sins, any type of devotional service. But if the jeera is fried and falls on the floor, it will not manifest. Does that then mean that if we don't do anything, I just want to understand what you meant by.
What I meant is mainly that analogy or the metaphor is to do with our proclivity to sin. There are 4 stages, isn't it? I was explaining there are 4 stages, right? So you can imagine this is the jeera seed, right? Now in every jeera seed, there is the inherent ability for it to germinate, isn't it? If you take that seed, it's got an inherent ability to germinate. So we may ask the question, is there anything that one can do to the seed that completely kills its ability to germinate? And the answer is yes. If you fry it over hot flame, it kills, it destroys its ability to germinate, right?
Yeah.
So what Srila Rupa Goswami is explaining there is that pure devotional service, when Krishna says he frees us from all sinful reaction, this is so powerful, it can fry it at the unmanifest stage. So Krishna can do that, but one may sometimes the point Prabhupada is making, although Krishna can and will do that, to purify the devotee, he may sometimes use some of the sinful reaction to help us. And as we were explaining in another sense, someone may say, okay, the moment I surrender to Krishna, if all my sinful reactions are taken away, why do I sin again? The only reason is because of our lack of total surrender. So Krishna says, if we surrender to Krishna completely and utterly, there's an absolute benefit. But sometimes because our surrender is not complete, there may be other aspects that manifest in our desire to commit sinful activity. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Chandrika Mata.
Yeah, that's okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I've got a question.
Yes.
So when you were saying that people who are pure devotees and undertake pure devotional service, their sinful reactions are burned, and you explained that even in that case, sometimes Krishna uses the sinful reactions if they're not fully surrendered. So I can understand that in somebody like myself, who needs reminding regularly. But when we look at some of the very pure devotees we have in our movement, who have surrendered to Krishna long time ago and have undertaken pure devotional service for many, many years, and then we see them suffer. Why is that?
Yes, that's an interesting question, and there are different answers have been given. But I'd like to give others an opportunity on today's session to see what their realizations are. Like, you know, when Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, you read, Srila Prabhupada talks about the incident that when he was in Delhi printing, busy with his printing work, one day he got gouged by a cow or a bull. Prabhupada is explained, you know, and he had some bruising. So what was that? Was that some reaction? So why do the devotees suffer? Anyone would like to offer their understanding?
Could it be purification, Prabhuji? I mean, obviously, Prabhupada didn't need any further purification, but for others, I suppose it could be part of their purification process.
Can you explain a bit more when you say others? What do you mean?
People who are not maybe at Prabhupada's stage, but
in Prabhupada's case, from his perspective.
yeah, so I can't explain the Prabhupada one now. I don't know why he would have got that.
Could it be happiness in Krishna consciousness?
Can you explain a bit more, Bharti Mataji? I mean,
Srila, you know, he had the how do you say it? Because he was all the time trying to be, you know, praying to Krishna that don't let me fall. That's how he was saying. And then he was always happy in Krishna consciousness because he knew that because of his spiritual master, he sort of knew that, you know, Krishna will be there to help him. So he wanted to remain happier in that and make people understand that Krishna, you know, to be happy in Krishna consciousness rather than take it as stress or really get distress of doing kirtan or shravanam or chanting, you know. You have to be happy. Is that what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I get what you're meaning, and you're very close to the explanation given by our yes.
It's because you can get happiness from pure devotional service, or you can also get it. I don't know. It's just by doing the pure devotional service, you get more happiness.
Yeah.
So was it showing that he was always on a transcendental platform, living on the material world? And not, although he was experiencing the life like an ordinary person, like in a human eye, but his consciousness was always on a transcendental platform in bliss and with Krishna.
All of the explanations you've given is very close in your own words, but essentially, for a pure devotee, there's no such thing as suffering.
Right, okay.
So one may ask, how is that? Because everything that happens in a pure devotee's life, they see it as the sanction of Krishna. That this is happening because Krishna sanctioned it. Krishna has my best interest at heart in everything. So this is, Prabhupada, you know, how he explains in the Bhagavatam purport, love bite. So-called suffering for the devotee is like love bite. You know, like, it's a bit of a gross example, but sometimes a lover bites another lover. And it's not pain, it's not suffering. It's a matter of perspective of how a devotee sees it. That's one reason. And the second reason is that to glorify a pure devotee. How a pure devotee responds to all reversals in life. The pure devotee gets, and we can see in the Bhagavatam, you know, there's just example after example after example. But the basic principle is that for a pure devotee, there is no such thing as suffering. There's no such thing as suffering because they are completely on the transcendental platform. Does that make sense to you all?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji.
It is quite an advanced stage. But I was reading something, but it's just not coming to my mind. If I get it next time, I will explain. It's such a beautiful explanation of this principle. And it's, you know, we can never understand the consciousness of a pure devotee. So next,
Prabhuji, just, you know, the reason that Yudhishthir Maharaj was given in terms of Pandavas' rough suffering, that it wasn't because of any offenses that they'd done to anyone, but there was a reason, I can't remember that reason why they had suffered, the Pandavas had suffered.
what was the reason they suffered?
Yes, they said they had not done any offense towards any of the 5 offenses that they talk about, but there was one reason that they were given for suffering. I can't remember what the reason
Is that in the first canto?
Yes,
Yeah.
Sorry, out of context maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I think there is. And there were some classes on that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'll look it up and maybe we can speak about it next week. So we've got 5 minutes left. I'd just like to talk about the next characteristics, which is the Sanskrit term is Shubhada. Shubhada. Pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. And Srila Rupa Goswami explains, gives a very, very nice explanation. And he basically writes also that the characteristics, or Srila Jiva Goswami writes, they become, these first 2 characteristics become fully manifest at the stage of Nishta, steadiness. And one should understand he has not yet become steady in sadhana bhakti if he's not become free from suffering and manifesting all auspicious qualities. So Rupa Goswami explains that this quality of steadiness, nishta, it's achieved when we become free from suffering, because what prevents us from becoming steady in our devotional life? It's the reactions, it's our desires, it's our mind. When one becomes, these 2 first characteristics become fully manifest, then we become steady. We become steady. So Srila Rupa Goswami said something cannot be deemed to be all auspicious without 3 criteria being met. So he says something very interesting. He said these are 3 criteria that has to be met for something to be considered all auspicious. And he lists these 3 criteria. He said, firstly, something must be considered to be all auspicious because it benefits everyone. That is the meaning of all auspicious. It is beneficial to everyone. Secondly, it must attract everyone. And thirdly, it must produce good qualities. So devotional service, it meets all 3 of these criteria. And he goes on to say that no other practice can make this claim. And then Srila Rupa Goswami goes on to elaborate each of that. And Srila Prabhupada, I think it's in the chapter 2 here when he discussed this particular characteristic under all auspiciousness, and that's page number 8. He gives the example of the United Nations. And he says, I'll just read for you very quickly what Srila Prabhupada writes. Srila Rupa Goswami has given a definition of auspiciousness. This is what I've just read to you. He says that actual auspiciousness means welfare activities for all of the people of the world. It means it must benefit everyone in the world. At the present moment, groups of people are engaged in welfare activities in terms of society, community, and nation. There is even an attempt in the form of the United Nations for World Help Activity. But due to the shortcomings of limited national activities, such a general mass welfare program for the whole world is not practically possible. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the human society. Everyone can be attracted by this movement, and everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda program for the Krishna consciousness movement of devotional service all over the world is the highest humanitarian activity. So what Srila Prabhupada is saying about Srila Rupa Goswami is saying, so say suppose you want to do a PhD research thesis. Right? What is the most beneficial activity that can be carried out? What is the most beneficial activity that can be carried out? So you can think some people are opening schools, some people are feeding the poor, some people are opening hospitals, some people are taking care of the older people. So Srila Rupa Goswami explains that all of these activities, they offer some benefit, but it is limited. And Krishna consciousness offers the best, because as we read in the previous verse, or the previous characteristics, it is the only process that can destroy the root cause of suffering. Why are these people suffering? Why don't they have food? Why are they suffering from disease? Why is they fighting among others? Because the root cause is there. And Krishna consciousness is the only process that can offer the people something that can address the root cause. And there's a quotation from the Padma Purana. And this is to deal with the all-attractive, all-beneficial nature of devotional service. A person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. And there's the example quoted by Lord Chaitanya. This morning, I'm sure many of you all heard Kartik Chandra Prabhu's class. It was a beautiful class. In that class, he said something which really, really resonated and stuck in my mind. And he said, what is the process or what is the mission of the Panchatattva? Did anyone catch? What was the answer there? What is the ultimate mission of the Panchatattva? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Was it to deliver love?
Love.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. He said, it's the distribution of love. That is the ultimate mission of the Panchatattva, to distribute love. And actually, there are many people, they have everything. And there are many people who have nothing. But at the end of the day, whether you have everything or you have nothing, if you have nothing but you have love, you have everything. And if you have everything but you don't have love, you have nothing. So the real scarcity in the world is actually love. And this is the mission of the Panchatattva, to distribute love. And this is the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And every follower of Srila Prabhupada, every person in this Krishna consciousness movement, we should have this consciousness. What is my dharma? As a follower of Lord Chaitanya, as a follower of Srila Prabhupada, what is my dharma? It is to distribute love. And when we distribute this love, we can benefit the entire world. I'm going slightly over, conscious of that, so maybe I'll stop here, and then next week we can continue discussing. And I'm taking a bit of time, but it's worth the effort to, because we have to understand why Srila Rupa Goswami is making the statements. And we have to understand it, then this understanding these 6 characteristics, it will instill greater faith in the process of devotional service, of how fortunate we are to be recipients of this pure devotional service that we're receiving. So I'll stop here. I'll take any more questions, comments, reflections that anyone may have.
Prabhuji, I have a question which is linked to desire and offenses that we just talked about, but it might be relevant. So if it is, then you can tell me and we don't need an answer. But you know Madhavendra Puri,
Yes.
so when he went to Ramuna, he was desiring the kheer, but he was desiring it as prasad, and he was wanting to taste it so he can then go and cook it for his Gopal. So why then did he think it was an offense to have thought that? Because to have prasad is a nice desire, isn't it? And why did he think he was an offender at the Lord's lotus feet then?
You know, when we offer anything to the Lord, right? If the thought comes in our mind, I wonder how it tastes.
Before we offer it.
Yeah. Then we feel we've committed an offense, isn't it?
Okay, so he
So
decided.
although he was thinking this kheer that is offered to Gopinath, this kheer, Gopinath kheer was world famous, you know, best kheer.
Yes.
So although his intention was pure, it was just simply to want to make this kheer for Gopal.
Yeah.
But from his perspective, being a really humble devotee, he thought, I've thought of tasting something even before it's been offered to the deity, and that's a big offense.
That is why. Okay, because I thought desiring prasad is a lovely desire, isn't it? That's not an offense.
Yeah, after the Lord has taken it and it's become prasadam, then it's wonderful. But not before the Lord has taken it.
Yeah, often we desire before the Lord has it because we're just hungry.
Because we are very hungry, we want to eat it.
Especially in God Purnima.
Often think what will it taste like? Will it be okay for the Lord?
When we talk about this, I always think of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. He was a little boy, 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah, the mangoes, yeah.
Before his father offered the mango, he was thinking. And then for the rest of his life, he would not eat mango. Anyone would offer him a mango, a nice Kesar mango or Alfonso. The first thing he would say is, I am an offender.
Amazing. Yeah.
He was such a...
So this was before it was offered. That's why he was an offender. Okay, I understand that. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Bhagavati Mataji, for your comment.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I had to change the name when I'm doing some financial stuff. So
That's okay.
So sorry.
No, that's okay. I should remember your name.
I was just thinking that as well, Prabhuji, that was so profound. The mission is to distribute love.
Yes, you know, this morning when that's like, I just couldn't think of anything else before when I heard that. You know, I was thinking, that's our mission. You know, in all our dealings, that should be our mission. Among our own devotees, among other people, we're not thinking so much about ourselves. We're always taxing our brain, how we can distribute this love. And that's how, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pleased. He's got this, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's explained how he's got this anxiety. Even when he was talking to Haridas Thakur, he was like saying, Haridas, how can these people be benefited? And Haridas Thakur said, by chanting the holy names. Then he said, but what about the trees and the other living entities? How will they be benefited? So that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And any devotee who develops this mission to want to distribute that love, then it certainly will get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, and the entire Panchatattva.
But that's why he never, even with other faiths, he dealt with it in such a loving way that they kind of almost started thinking his way, didn't he?
Exactly.
He was talking about Buddhism and Jainism and all that, and how he won them over just with giving love, the way he preached. Yeah, so beautifully described.
At every stage of Mahaprabhu's life, you'll see, even when this Digvijay Pandit, came and challenged him, and then he recited this, 50 verse explanations of this glorification of Ganga Devi.
Yeah.
And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out all the errors in his grammar, and the students started laughing when Mahaprabhu was pointing out. Immediately Mahaprabhu chastised them and said, why are you laughing? He's a scholar. Even the Mayavadis, everywhere Mahaprabhu just showed love.
So nice.
All right. Any other questions or comments, or shall we close for today?
Isn't that what we heard, Prabhuji, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically came, and because he just wanted to know that how this Radha and the Gopi and they all have loved him so much and how to reciprocate that love. Is that the reason he has appeared? To show his vow to his devotees?
Well, there's the external and the internal reason. The internal reason, he came to experience the love of Srimati Radharani. Yeah. And it's Krishna who came in the mood of Radharani. Mm-hmm. And we know that the mood of Radharani, when it's directed to Krishna, it's Mahabhav. Mm-hmm. And when it's directed to the living entities, it is what? So Radharani's love, when it's directed to Krishna, it's Mahabhav. And when our love is directed to the living entities, it's what? It's Karuna. It's Karuna, mercy.
Karuna, okay.
So therefore, Mahaprabhu's mood, in the mood of Srimati Radharani, when that love is directed to the living entities, that's Srimati Radharani's mood.
Wow.
It's the highest form of Karuna.
Very potent, yeah.
It's the highest form, just like a love for Krishna is the highest form, it's Mahabhav.
Yeah.
When that love is extended to the living entities, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radharani, it's the highest.
So nice, honestly. I started reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita again, and it's really, really opens your mind. Beautiful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
So everyone, you can show your love. You can distribute that love by distributing Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So
very true.
Before Sunday, try to distribute, or if you don't have, take one set of Chaitanya Charitamrita for yourself.
I heard you can pay even at the desk on Sunday if you want one.
No, we're not having that facility because we're not allowed to sell anything there, but you can do it online.
Oh, I see. But if somebody is interested on the day, what happens?
We'll just direct them to the link. They can pay via the link.
Via the link.
Yes. Okay. All right.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so
much. Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful.
All glories to your service. Vanchakalpa Turubhasya. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, everybody.
Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.